This is a public service announcement that Game are selling off all of their pre-owned games for half price. That's right, 50% off all pre-used games, but the problem is, you just have to be able to find them.
Game Pickups! Building the Games Room! Rush Trips! Live Game Hunting!
Hey again folks, and welcome back to a very special live game hunting episode, and I mean that literally. That's because this time we'll be hitting up Game, one of the biggest video game stores here in the UK. That's because back in January, Game announced they are no longer going to be selling pre-owned games. And a lot of people have wondered what's going to happen to these pre-owned games, and it seems we have an answer. That's because at the moment in game stores all around the UK, they are selling off all of their pre-owned games for 50% off, half price. And I do mean all of their games. We are talking games for the Xbox One, the Xbox Series X, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, even the Nintendo Switch. And these aren't just old bargain bin basement games. We're talking about some of the new release games. If it's pre-owned, it's 50% off. But the problem is, you just have to find them. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content for the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. And if you want to give some extra support to the channel, please consider becoming a supporter over on Patreon. It's just £1 a month and you get even more great content, including behind the scenes footage, real-time game deals, giveaways and bargain games for sale from my own collection for better than CEX prices. We are kicking off the hunt this time at my local game store here in the fine city of Norwich, which, like many other game stores around the UK, is inside a Sports Direct, which in turn here in Norwich is inside a Fraser's. So you have to go all the way to the top of the third floor, then you'll find yourself in Sports Direct. Follow that all the way round through all of the football shirts, trainers, etc, and hiding in the back of a dark corner is the game store here in Norwich. And let's hope we can find some of these fabled 50% games. Let's have a little look round my local game store here in Norwich then. So at the back they have the gaming area, which was absolutely rammed. And here we have the brand new releases for the PlayStation 5. There was a pretty good selection here, and at first I thought I'd found the sale aisle right here. So you can see we have a lot of Lego games, some PlayStation 4 games, nothing really to see here. Remember, today we are looking for the games which are 50% off. At the moment, Game are selling off all of their pre-owned games for 50% off, and this is what I'm looking for. Here we have a massive Nintendo section, a very large selection of both consoles and games, but again, I'm not seeing these 50% off games. These are all brand new games, or you know, the display cases which are on the shelves, but we are not finding any offers other than, as you see in every game store, the coveted 2 for £20. Unfortunately, it didn't appear that my local game store had any pre-owned games. There was some games on sale, such as Redfall for £6, which is probably about £5 more than that game is worth, but sadly no pre-owned games. I don't know if I just missed out and these had all sold out or what, and I was a bit disappointed because here's the thing, if I can find some of these games for 50% off, these prices are going to be absolutely amazing, but I hadn't given up yet. Luckily, me and my good friend PS2 Mini Games had planned a bit of a road trip, and in two of the places we were visiting, there was Sports Direct and game stores, which means I had two more opportunities to try and find these half-price games. Now, of course, the running joke is the hardest part is to find the game store to begin with, and it's normally hidden at the back in the shadows. So me and PS2 Mini Games were on the hunt for games, of course, but more specifically, the 50% off pre-owned games. But unfortunately, this time in Skegness, we were met by nothing but disappointment. This is the smallest game store, if you can even call it a store, I think I've ever seen. It was literally a couple of controllers, a very small selection of games, and again, most annoyingly, no pre-owned games. But we hadn't given up yet. About an hour's drive through rural Lincolnshire, we were on our way to one of the final standalone game stores in the whole of the UK in Lincoln. And I was hoping, and I was crossing my fingers, and I was praying that in this final store we could find some of these fabled 50% off pre-owned games. Now I know there isn't many of these standalone game stores left in the UK. I think I know of about 4 or 5, but comment down below if your local town or city has its own standalone game. This is our last chance to dance, and I had a good feeling about this. If I was going to find these pre-owned games anywhere, it had to be in one of the last standalone stores. Now let's talk about this in the comments down below, but please keep it civil. What do you think of the state of game in 2024? I can understand the need to diversify, but some of the stuff they sell in their stores now is very, very strange. But thankfully, they still had games in this store. But the question is, are we going to find those fabled 50% off pre-owned games? Let's find out. There it is, folks. We have a winner. Here in Lincoln, all pre-owned games are 50% off. And there is a lot of games to go through here. So we're starting off on the Xbox One section. Now, the pricing on these games is the standard price. You take 50% off the marked price. So say a game is $4.99, it's going to be sold for £2.50. And these prices are pretty good for pre-owned games, but when you take them to 50% off, these prices are absolutely fantastic. Now, it had been quite a busy day of game hunting, and I didn't have quite the budget I would have liked coming to this, our final store of the day, but I still wanted to pick some bits up because that 50% off made these games absolute bargains. I just needed to find the right games. Here's the big question though. Do you go for super cheap games because you get them for an absolute bargain price? Or do you go for some of the more expensive games because you save more money picking them up with the 50% off? That is a big question. And I had a plan to do a little bit of both. I just had to find the right games. I was tempted by TMNT, but it was over in the PlayStation 5 section where I found some of the biggest bargains. And one of these games coming up, I was surprised this was in the pre-owned section. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. So this would be just £15. This game has not been out too long. And that is an absolutely fantastic price. 15 quid for that and £2.50 for the Callisto Protocol. That is some absolutely fantastic prices. There is a lot of good PlayStation 5 games here, including The Evil Dead, a game which I've held off picking up for ages, but for a £5, I had to grab it. I have slowed this down a bit here because I did go through the Switch section very fast when I was in store, but again there was some absolute bargains to be had here. I kind of regret not picking up Diablo for a tenner, but like I said, I came in with a somewhat limited budget and I just couldn't pick everything up, but I wanted to get some absolute bargains while I could. I would highly recommend checking your local game store for these 50% off bargains. Yes, 2 of the stores I'd visited had been a bust, but just finding these few games in Lincoln had made the hunt worthwhile, especially when it comes to PlayStation 5 games. These are absolute bargains. You can get some absolutely fantastic titles for 50% off, making these games cheaper than anywhere else. I managed to pick up one last game here in the PlayStation 4 section. Again, like The Evil Dead, it is a game which I've been holding off buying for absolutely ages, but as it's an exclusive game for the PlayStation 4, this version as such, I wanted to pick it up as this is the cheapest I've ever seen this game. At just £5, this was a must grab, and trust me, in the future this game is going to get much more expensive, and that game, our final pickup, is Shadow of the Colossus. Let's take it back to the games room for a debrief. Here we are then back in the games room, and it took us a couple of attempts, but it was third time lucky that we managed to find some of these fabled 50% off pre-owned games in game, and I managed to get some absolute bargains, starting off with this game for just £2.50, the Callisto Protocol. Now, I've been wanting to play this game for a very long while. I have seen some footage of this, and this is a very, very violent, gory game, and I think it's got a little bit overshadowed because this came out the same time as the remake of Dead Space. Correct me if I'm wrong, but let me know in the comments down below if you've played this one. I just couldn't believe it though. This is the thing about this deal in game. It was £2.50 for a PlayStation 5 game. That is an absolute bargain, but the bargains don't stop there. Next up, we have another bargain for the PlayStation 5, The Evil Dead game. Now, this is marked at $12.99, but it's scanned at $9.99, so down to just £5. Now, I've been waiting to play this game for the longest while. I'm a massive fan of both the Evil Dead films and the Evil Dead TV series, but as this was a multiplayer game, I did hold off for quite a long while. It's got PvP and PvE, and honestly, I'm quite excited to jump into this one. Here we have one of the most iconic PlayStation games of all time, starting off on the PlayStation 2, getting an HD remaster on the PlayStation 3, and now on the PlayStation 5 I have Shadow of the Colossus. Without a doubt, one of the most iconic games, not just for the PlayStation, but for video games in general. This kind of changed what it was to be a video game. It has some incredible twists, an amazing art style, and a really, really good story. Some of the physics in this game do kind of annoy me, but I think some of the climbing mechanics have got better. From the PlayStation 2, they improved it on the PlayStation 3, and now on the PlayStation 4. This is a definitive way to play this must-play PlayStation classic. Like I said at the start of this video, it is 50% off all pre-owned games at Game at the moment while stocks last. That includes new releases like this game, Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, and this game looks absolutely incredible. Just being able to explore the open world of Pandora and just seeing areas that haven't been explored in both of the Avatar films. This looks really, really cool. I know it's a kind of classic Ubisoft open world explore, but I just think being on Pandora with all the local wildlife and the exotic locations, this one's going to be really, really cool. And to be able to pick this up a few months after launch for just 15 quid is an absolute bargain. Normally these games right here would have set me back £54.96, but with the 50% off all pre-owned games at Game, these cost me just £27.48. That means these games altogether cost less than it normally costs for just this one game alone. But these deals are not going to stick around very long, so I would recommend hit up your local game store as soon as possible. And if you manage to find any of these bargain 50% off games, let me know in the comments down below. I really want to find out what bargains you managed to find. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See you soon.